Crispian Mills was born into a family of actors, film producers, and directors. He was exposed to a wide variety of music, but when he heard "You Really Got Me" by the Kinks, it was an epiphany. He knew he wanted to play guitar. Through determination and practice, he became a great guitarist. He loved Deep Purple. He loved the Ramones. He played in bands including X-Ray Spex before forming Kula Shaker in 1996. Their debut album, K, was the fastest-selling debut since the self-titled first record by Elastica. They released Natural Magic in 2024, as well as two recent singles, Charge of the Light Brigade and Broke as Folk. A tour with the Dandy Warhols kicks off this fall. He's a talented, spiritual, dynamic singer-songwriter with a great guitar sound. It was fascinating to talk with Kula Shaker frontman Crispian Mills.
Wizards and witches, Jesus freaks.
You're listening to Frets with DJ Fey. No lessons, no technique info. I just talk to people who play guitar. Stay tuned. Crispian Mills, thanks so much for doing this today.
Thank you for having me on Frets.
I'd love to hear about your early life and growing up in West London and being born into a family of actors, film producers, directors. At what age did you become aware of what your parents and grandparents were doing as a profession?
I was always aware of it. I was aware that they had jobs and it involved going away, and disappearing and into this another world. I think acting is the kind of job where you go away, have very intense relationships with a small group of people, and then separate from them and move on to the next job. And so it was, you end up having sort of pockets of friends from different times of your life, different jobs. But my grandfather played music as well. He played piano, and my father also played piano. And so it was in the family, and I absorbed it, without really being conscious of, how much you're sort of soaking up.
Sure.
And I think it's like that with music, how it becomes a part of your life. And if you start playing it, what kind of music are you going to start playing? So much of that is because of what you've absorbed at what formative time in your life. It's very interesting to go back and see where the first scars were left.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I grew up in the 60s and remember your mom, Haley Mills, in stuff even when I was a kid, like Pollyanna and, of course, The Parent Trap, where she played two parts, the twin sisters. But then in my teen years, I was reading just about every book I could get about the Beatles, anything I could get my hands on. And I read Hunter Davies' biography, and it mentioned, I think that was the first time I read about the family way that Paul McCartney and George Martin provided music for, but that was also something that your dad was, well, your mom starred in it, but your dad was very much involved in that.
Yeah. No, it's a real sort of timepiece of British cinema in the late mid '60s. It was written by the same guy who wrote the film Alfie.
Right.
The Michael Caine starred in. And my grandfather played the dad, and my mum played the daughter, and my father was the director and had worked on the script as well. And they wanted, it was a real '60s movie. It was real sort of snapshot of sort of working class Northern England. I don't know
Yeah.
why they asked my mum and her dad, because they weren't really known for being working class, but they played it. They played the part well, and they managed to get Paul McCartney. Paul McCartney saw a rough cut, and he saw the film, and then he went off on a romantic holiday with Jane Asher and just sort of disappeared. And my dad said that they were all freaking out, that they thought maybe they'd lost Paul McCartney for the soundtrack. But also, or maybe he was just, incommunicado. So they confided to George Martin, who was in charge of the score, what we're freaking out. What are we going to do? And George Martin said, "Don't worry, I will write a piece of music for you." So they were like, "Okay, well, that's great. I mean, music by George Martin is still a big thing. Yeah. It's still going to be really cool." So then they turned up to a studio, and George Martin was there, and he says, "Look, here's the good news. I have spoken to Paul. He sent me his music, so you do have it after all. But you have actually two pieces. You have the piece I wrote, plus you have Paul's piece. Yeah. Would you like to hear both?" And they said, "Yes, please. That'd be fantastic." He said, "I won't tell you which is which. You have to choose your favorite one." Wow. Which is a bit naughty of him. So he sat at the piano and he played them the two themes. And my dad and his brother sat and they listened to these two themes, and they said, "Oh, the second one, definitely, we want that." And he went, "Damn, I knew it. I knew it was," and it was Paul's. So they ended up choosing Paul's. Wow. But they had a moment there, had a litmus moment there.
Oh, Murray Head was also in that. Murray Head of Jesus Christ Superstar fame. He was in that film.
Yes. Yeah, Murray Head was in it. He got dubbed. Unfortunately. I don't know how he felt about that. And Murray Head, who was in Jesus Christ Superstar and sang One Night in Bangkok for the musical Chess, he is the brother of Murray Head, who was the teacher in Buffy the Vampire Slayer.
Oh, wow. I did not know that.
Well, now you do.
Well, your grandfather, you mentioned, he introduced you to a lot of music when you were young, I understand.
Well, yeah, but he introduced me to music just through playing the piano. He was really good, and so he was the person. A lot of the grandchildren used to sort of sit next to him at the piano and listen and maybe sort of join in a bit. That was the most sort of musical coming together that we had, was with him at the piano. And I used to go over there and to their house and just sit at the piano for hours. And my grandmother used to sort of encourage me. And, it is a gift. It is a blessing to have an ear for music. And she used to say, don't take it for granted. And, it's, don't waste it.
Hey, I want to talk about Plug. Plug makes it easy for you to purchase the personal technology you need at 40 to 70% off retail pricing. What can you get from Plug? Certified pre-owned devices including iPhones, Androids, AirPods, Macs, smartwatches, accessories, and more. I originally didn't even want an Apple Watch, but I got one from Plug and I love it. I wear it every day. Your purchase is backed by their unmatched 1-year warranty and 30-day money-back guarantee. One more very cool thing, Plug is dedicated to helping reduce e-waste around the globe. To date, Plug has helped save over 1 million devices from reaching landfills, and they're looking to double that number by 2025. Link to Plug Tech from the show notes, and check out all the great deals and savings on certified pre-owned devices. Plug Electronics. Check it out. Well, tell me if this is correct, but I was reading that you were inspired to play the guitar upon hearing You Really Got Me by the Kinks.
Yeah. I think that was the moment. That was the Road to Damascus moment. There's been a few really influential experiences where you get pushed, further into music or further into an instrument. But the moment that I was first, sort of the spell was first cast, was this sort of, and you're transported, and there's nothing else except for that piece of music. It was hearing that for the first time in my life.
Yeah.
And I heard it loud as well.
That's the way to
I
hear
heard it played really loud. And I heard it coming through from somebody's room. I heard it coming down the hallway, and I walked into the room like I was entering the sort of inner chamber of some temple.
it.
And there it was, this music. And I mean, it was already 25 years old when I heard it, that music, but it was still, and still got it now. And there's a moment in the new sort of the complete unknown, the Timothy Chardonnay movie,
Oh, the
where
Dylan biopic, yeah.
yeah, where they have the Kinks. You really got me.
Yeah.
It features somewhere around the middle of the film,
Yep.
and you've had all this folk music up to that point, and then suddenly you hear it blasting out of a car, and you really get this sense of the Dylan as well must have said, "Man, I'm having some of that.
Right.
I've had enough of this folk stuff. Get me an electric guitar. I want some of that hot sauce. Rock and roll. That is a fix, man.
Yeah.
I mean,
And I'm
it
so
was
glad.
interesting.
I'm so glad Dylan went electric. And
Well, it was inevitable, and he got that Strat, he got the Buddy Holly Strat. That was the first electric that he got, wasn't it? And you wonder why he didn't do it, to begin with. I guess was part of the journey for him. But it's interesting hearing Dylan talk about his pilgrimage to go and see Buddy Holly, and how he stood at the front and watched him and was almost sort of infected by that kind of, by the magic, by the power, because it does visit people like that. There's something, it touches them, and some kind of Holy Spirit.
yeah.
So I think it was always destiny.
Well, who are some of your other guitarists or band heroes that were influences along the way?
Well, after I went through that that initiation into electric guitar and the Kinks and everything. The next big moment was hearing Smoke on the Water, and Highway Star,
Yeah.
the Deep Purple live record. I heard that when I was like 12, just the perfect age to hear that record. Is and just like, who is Richie Blackmore? I must know more. And I was wondering why. I was talking to somebody about this the other night, and I can't remember why it came up, but it was I think it was a friend of mine was talking to Steve Jones from the Sex Pistols.
Wow.
About and he mentioned Highway Star. Steve Jones mentioned Highway Star, and what an amazing track that was. And we were talking about why Deep Purple weren't on all these lists of because we were talking about Ozzy, passing away, and how Black Sabbath really get the credit, and Led Zeppelin get the credit, and even like Yes and Rush, but Deep Purple are kind of more. They're kind of a bit. They were never cool. And why are they never on those kind of those all-time great charts? I mean, they're on my charts, but I think it's because the lists are made by snobs.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I listened.
But they're very, very influential.
Yeah, no, I was listening to that live album and Machine Head quite a bit in high school. I love those albums. Stay tuned. We'll be right back.
Hey, Dave, didn't we see you in the store the other day?
Yeah, I'm always at Euclid Records. I'm either buying new releases or buying the back catalog of guests who've been on Frets.
So, Euclid Records has been around since 1981. How long have you been with us?
I do remember the original store on Euclid, but I used to go to the store when I lived in the West End. My routine was breakfast at the Majestic and then go next door and buy records.
And you also shop our website. We have our own shipping department to take care of our national customers, but you use our local pickup option, right?
I do. Local pickup's great. I can shop the website 24/7. Buy it, come into the store, pick it up at my convenience.
And it's free.
It's a pleasure to visit the store. It's easy to shop. 2 floors of vinyl and CDs. I love that upstairs with the jazz.
Same here. You know, we're a bunch of music nerd librarians. We are obsessed with alphabetizing and making it easy for people to find what they want and discover new things. Plus, we get to talk music all day long with 5 generations of music lovers.
Euclid Records also buys music collections, right?
We do. We have buyers in the store 7 days a week, and we can make you an offer for cash or in-store credit on what it is we can use. Wait, does this mean you're thinking of selling us your collection? We know it's a good one.
No, not just yet. I'm still collecting and enjoying it. I know you got to get back to work, so let's end with telling them how to partake in the Euclid Records experience.
You got it. We are open 7 days a week in Webster Groves, and check us out on Instagram, TikTok, and Facebook. And you can browse and buy 24/7 at euclidrecords.com. And remember, we do ship worldwide, so no matter where you are, we can get the music in your hands. And we'd love to take care of your Frets listeners.
Would you say your interest in spiritualism led you to psychedelic music, or maybe the other way around? Did psychedelia possibly lead you into an interest in spiritualism?
Well, in England, spiritualism means like people, old ladies, kind of getting around and reading tea leaves and sort of clairvoyance. But so I'm assuming you mean like sort of spirituality and
Well,
those
spirituality, yes, yeah.
Yeah. No, I think it's just part of life, and it's, you know, some people gravitate towards it more with more abandon than others, and I think that those are the people that traditionally in the tribe would say, all right, you go and be one of the you go and be an apprentice to the priest or the shaman or whoever, or you go and live in that community, you know. And yeah, I think it's just your calling, and it's like playing music. I think everybody loves music, but some people are called to play it as well.
Yeah.
And some people are called to devote their life entirely to it, and some people just don't have a choice, and it sends them a bit mad. And I think spirituality is just like that. It's part of everyone's life, and it's just how much it dominates it and how much you are prepared to give. And so for me, it was really like that. It was always around this sort of sense of the spiritual life being, you know, as important as anything else, if not the basis of everything else. So my grandma was half Irish, and she was always going on about the spirits and blaming the spirits for the fact she drank too much. And we had some missionaries in the family, so there was a bit of a tradition of, you know, that walk of life. I think psychedelics they can sort of explain a few things sometimes. They don't give you the answer to life, but they can explain or give an insight into why people ask the questions.
Yeah.
big questions and
Opens
why
up some doors.
people pursue it. It certainly opens up some doors, but it doesn't give you any shortcuts for
Right.
sure. Definitely, you just got to claw your way there the hard way, like everybody else.
Right.
It reveals the mountain. It doesn't let you climb it. Maybe
That's a good way. That's a great way of putting it. Well, I do want to get into the formation of Kula Shaker, but prior to that, you did a stint in X-ray specs with polystyrene.
Yeah, that was a great experience. That was my first professional job where I got hired and I got paid. I knew her actually. I bumped into her a couple of times in the Krishna temple, and my mum had met her a couple of times also at the Krishna temple. At a feast or something, and she was cool, and she always recognized me and pointed me out because I had like a 60s bowl haircut, like a Brian Jones haircut. Even when I was like 14, I think was when I started sculpting it. And then she used to kind of joke with me saying, "Oh, I think you're the reincarnation of Brian Jones, and I want Brian Jones in my band." But she battled her whole life with mental illness.
Yeah.
And she she was having huge breaks in her career and like years and decades sometimes of doing nothing. And then she was booked to do a big show at one of the big theatres in London called Brixton Academy, which is like 5,500. It was quite a big gig to do if you have been off the map for a long time. And it was a great night, and I had to learn all of that album, all of the Germ-Free Adolescence album, plus a couple of new ones that she had, which were good from an EP she'd done called Trick of the Witch or something. And it was a really good experience, but I was thrown out in front of a big audience at 17. And I remember everyone in the band was black. I was the only white guy in the band, and the whole audience was very white. And there was a lot of quite scary old punks. And there was a moment of fear where we just didn't know what kind of audience it was going to be. And the keyboard, no one was really scared apart from the keyboard player. I seem to remember him going quite pale, even for a black guy. He was pretty pale at night. And but we went out and we did it, and it was great. The audience were really warm, and I did get a taste of what it was like to play hit songs to a welcoming crowd, and it kept me going for a while, and it made it feel more obtainable as well. I guess it made me feel like, yeah, you can do this. I'd seen behind the curtain, and I'd seen what went into putting on a show. I'd been playing in bands for a long time at school, but not like that, not at that level. And I was already smoking cigarettes, and I said, I'm going to give up smoking cigarettes for this show. I'm going to be really, I was all, it's ridiculous. I was 17. I was already worrying about being a smoker. And I got paid 500 quid, which was, a lot of money for a 17-year-old. I spent the whole thing on buying pure weed because it was a good way to give up smoking tobacco.
There you go. Well, the name of the band, Kula Shaker, that came from, was it like an ancient Indian holy man or emperor?
Yeah, the name Kula Shaker was, it's quite famous in South India. Kula Shaker. Kula Shaker is how it's not spelt the way that we spell it. But he is a famous king. He was one of the Alwars, which was a collection of poets that have been grouped, by historians as a movement of devotional saints who were also poets. They were called Alwas, and some of them were, penniless wanderers who wrote this amazing poetry, and some of them were men, some of them were women, and one of them was a king, and they have a particular mood. It's not just devotional, and they regard God as a person, and they also they would also kind of descend into sort of ecstatic symptoms. They would express very intimate love for God, and would often, exhibit symptoms that people would, normal people would think they were mad, or in some sort of state of an ecstatic trance. And there's a really interesting history of the Alwars. But I wasn't really a great sort of historian or anything, but I heard about King Kula Shaker, because he sounded like a cross between Merlin and King Arthur and, Francis all rolled into one. But I heard about it because I met this old Krishna devotee who had, lived with John Lennon and George Harrison and knew a lot of stories from the late 60s and the days when the Krishna Temple made a record at Apple Records, and he had been named after that king. So when I heard the name, I just thought it sounded musical, and it sounded like I've recently found that Kula Shaker means ass, shake your ass in Spanish.
Nice.
Brothers and sisters, we are gathered here together to witness the great congregation in this Aquarian age of communication and rehumanization. The revolution will not be live streamed across all social platforms. You will receive no notifications, only dehypnotizations, revelations and realizations. And now we all stand up before the cell door shuts, and we ain't gonna fear, we ain't gonna hate with wars from the south to the Barren Straits.
Hello, this is Crispian Mills from Kula Shaker, and you are listening to Frets with DJ Fey.
Well, I watched a lot of 120 minutes in the 90s, and I used to actually record those on VHS tapes back in the VHS tape days. I still have a handful of those around here somewhere. But you guys showed up on MTV 120 Minutes a lot back in those days. I remember seeing Tatva, and also I remember a pretty funny promo, if I'm remembering right. One of those like promos between videos, and you guys came out and said something like, "Hey, we're the Spice Girls, and you're watching 120 Minutes on MTV."
Yeah,
I loved all that stuff. That was a good period for MTV, I thought.
yeah. Everybody was just. It was a bit of a riot, wasn't it?
Yeah.
It was a bit of a free for all. It was a free for all, and the bands were, making it their business to be as badly behaved as possible. And for some reason, most of the VJs, as they were called, they were all quite straight.
Oh, really?
So they were sort of always expecting a sensible answer, and they never got one.
When the band first formed, how did it come to be? Like, did you initiate that, or was it a collaboration between you and other band members that you had been playing with?
Yeah, we got, we formed like all bands do, because we were mates, or because we played in other bands together, or and you get to a point where you kind of gravitate towards the best people you've met, so far. And Alonso lived up the road from me in Hampton, and Paul I'd recently just met playing drums with another band, and I was ready to leave home, and I said, I'm gonna move out. I'm gonna get a place that I got somewhere to leave my stuff, and then I'm gonna go to India. I've got a mission. I've got to go on a pilgrimage. When I come back, let's all get a place together. Let's all just go for it and just give ourselves no options other than success. And failure will just be, this unspeakable thing. And it did put a lot of pressure on us that we had no backup plan. We had no skills, no qualifications, and we were just all in and very reckless. I wonder sometimes, if we hadn't done that, would we have would we have kept going? Because it was a long, from the point that where we all committed to the band, it was about 2 years to get our record deal that we eventually made Kay with. And I know it doesn't sound like a lot, now, but when you're 18, 19, 2 years is like it's a huge chunk of your life.
Yeah, it really is.
So there were times where we just thought we were cursed and it was never going to work. And some friends of ours were in a band called Reef. Reef got signed about just under a year before we did, which which started to become quite difficult for us to deal with. But they it ended up great. We all actually ended up with Sony in the end.
You guys recently released a great new single along with a very cool, trippy video for Charge of the Light Brigade.
Yeah, we got we have been very prolific, especially in the last 4 to 5 years. Oh no, it's even less than that. Oh my God! In the last 3 years we've released it's coming up to 3 albums now.
Yeah.
Because of the band broke up in the end of '99. And it was just down to pure stress, really. And in the interim, we ended up making the occasional record with huge breaks in between them because we were doing other things, and we were a small indie label, and we just had to almost start it again. And then we came out of the whole COVID mania. We came out of that with sort of like the Batmobile with Jay. Came back. We managed to get him back from Oasis, and the original lineup restored, and this like huge burst of energy, and a sense of purpose and timing. Like you need to feel like you have a reason to make music and the same kind of passion. You shouldn't lose that passion as you get older. You can enjoy playing and hey, we're just coming to a gig because it's. But with Kula Shaker, it was always like a real determined mission, a sense of mission, a sense of purpose. We've got to play. We've got to deliver this gig. We've got to, sing these songs, and we still got it. And now Jay's back. It's like this deluge of new material, and it's been really good.
Well, your latest album, Natural Magic, is great. The opening track, Gaslighting, is fantastic, and there's just a lot of great tracks on the whole album. It's really nice.
Yeah, that was a lot of fun. Again, it was a very live record. And that's kind of how Kay was recorded, and we love Peasants, Pigs, and Astronauts. That's like our somewhere between a folly and a masterpiece. But it was recorded over a long period of time with Bob Ezrin and Rick Rubin. Kay was much more sort of from the hip, and a lot of it was thrown down quite quickly, and it all been played live. So Natural Magic has a bit of that going on. There's tracks on there that were tried and tested live, and we're still working like that now. It's all Charge of the Light Brigade and the new single Brokers Folk. They all were played live, and they all you can really hear their energy.
Yeah. Oh, I remembered something else I wanted to ask you about. We talked earlier about when we were talking about Murray Head, who was in The Family Way, directed by your dad. On Kula Shaker's 2010 album, Pilgrim's Progress, which I love that album, the track Modern Blues, toward the end of the track, there's like a subtle, or maybe not so subtle, nod to Jesus Christ Superstar with that classic guitar riff that shows up toward the end of the song. You know what I'm talking about, right? You have to.
Yeah.
I love that. I love when bands do that. And,
I break into Jesus Christ Superstar all the time. I can't help it. It just happened. I mean, Jesus Christ Superstar was a one of our references for Peasants, Pigs, and Astronauts.
Yeah.
It was like nobody. We're approaching the end of the century, and we thought, well, we gotta do the millennial concept record, like properly go for it, not just like a lyric here or there, or nod in a title. We thought we're going to have to go the whole hog and do this album. Where are we now? Where have we come from? Where are we going? One of those albums, and we certainly went there. and and it's interesting, how K made us like Top of the Pops, but it was actually Peasants, Pigs and Astronauts that kind of solidified that core fan base, and that got that we still play to now. That was the one where people realized we were for real.
Crispian Mills, this was very cool. Thank you so much for taking some time to talk today.
My pleasure. I hope we've spoken enough about guitars, not too much about religious, devotional, ecstatic states.
That's the great stuff.
All right, man.
Thanks, Crispian.
Take care. All right, bye.
Bye-bye. Kula Shaker begins a fall tour at Escott Park in Exeter this week, and starting in September, they'll be playing shows here in the States. Do me a favor, subscribe for free to Frets with DJ Fey at all podcast platforms and at YouTube, where you can find videos featuring live performances from Frets guests, as well as me attempting to play guitar. It's, let's just say, somewhat entertaining. Thanks for listening, and stay tuned.